you can do whatever you want to do, you can say whatever you want to say, but if the data doesn't tell me that, then it's quite hard for me to believe you, for the lack of a better word. And we keep saying with data, you can never lose. You either win or you learn. What's gonna be the next big equalizer beyond education is digital. For me, I keep saying whatever thing I'm asked to do, I always want to go above and beyond. Africa is just a big pot of very many things happening, very many cultures put together happening. And I think it's something we really need to preserve.
Hello guys, welcome to Stories and Journeys, where we explore the transformative power of learning, growth, and resilience. Join us as we uncover untold narratives and ignite curiosity. My name is Oluwatimilei Oyedeji. And joining us here today on this episode of Stories and Journeys is a renowned marketeer across border. Has worked across Sub-Saharan Africa, East Africa. With so much word of experience, he currently airs the group marketing team at Welcome Tomorrow. He's no other person than Brian Abel. Hi, Brian.
Cool. Thank you very much. Hi, how are you doing?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. It's a very interesting introduction, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. I mean, it's been years, you cross-pollinating between Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Dubai, working with various brands. How's that journey been like for you, as a person?
Yeah. Well, it's been exciting. I didn't really think I would be in this space. I think when I started, I had a different vision completely when I started, although I was trying to get into the corporate space. But then with time, I fell in love with numbers. I fell in love with digital in general. And I just wanted to go down this path. It's been I'm not as experienced as very many people would think. I don't have 10 years in the industry. But the short experience I've had, I have really, it's been very impactful quite quickly, and I think that's the nature of digital. One day you're in Nairobi trying to, almost be part of the beginning of an operations. The next day you're in Lagos being asked to, run something bigger. It's been a very interesting journey and very fulfilling to say the least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's been a really nice one. I think when we met, right, you were working with Twitter, at the time, and trying to see how brands can sort of leverage that platform to connect with consumers, and obviously you have experience across other brands because of where you had worked at the time, other global platforms, Snapchat, Spotify, X, formerly Twitter, Meta, and moving between Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa. If you think about it, right, what was that thing that gave you the strength, or the capacity, to be able to juggle all of those markets and still be able to deliver optimally, to clients that you're servicing at the time?
Yeah. Wow. I think one of the biggest things that's just been a defining thing across my life, I think, has been, I'd almost call it the work ethic. A lot of my friends, when we have conversations, or people in the industry, it's almost like, you love what you do, you landed upon it, and that's how you ended up there. But that's not the actual case. I really wanted to become an accountant because my dad is also an accountant, a retired accountant now.
You actually started with KPMG?
Exactly, yeah. Spent some time at KPMG. Not too long. I was again just trying to be an intern, find my feet. It was a very short time. I went back to school. I went into public policy. So I worked at the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi as a commercial trainee. I worked at the American Chamber of Commerce, again, pretty much similar, public policy. It was, again, quite interesting. And at the chamber, that's actually where we're trying to help a company launch in Kenya, which then was the second largest PR firm in the world. It was called Webber Shandwick, still does exist. And they flew in all their chairman, or rather their chairman then actually spoke at this launch.
Okay.
And then he was talking about digital and what it can help people do. And for me, it just seemed really, really interesting. I was like, I've never experienced this because I'd never been in the marketing space. In fact, I really hated marketing too, for the lack of a better word. And I was like, let me give it I don't know what this is, but I want to
give it a shot.
Dive deeper into it, dive deeper into it. So it was really, really interesting. I met some interesting people in that room. There was a guy who had just sold his own agency to Webber Shandwick, one of the most, in my own opinion, creative agencies I'd seen at that point, and probably till now, I've ever seen. They were showing us these campaigns they're doing in Sweden, and I'm just like, this is mind blowing. So I had to get in. So randomly one day, I'm on. Again, I love X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm just there, then I see this guy tweet by one of my former bosses, and he says, "Hey, I'm in Nairobi. I'm hiring." I really didn't understand what this was about, but it had the name Twitter, so I was like, let me just apply. Applied, began as an account coordinator, seated in Nairobi, trying to help the Dynamo business then before it got acquired by Aleph. Then, it just became it was a very rapid industry, but also it was quite a quick company, for the lack of a better word. A couple of months later, I'm being told, head over to Lagos. And I'm like, well, I'm too young. I'm too experienced. I have never managed a business this size. Why do you want me to go to Nigeria? In fact, why don't you put someone else? That's what I told the business. So they said, no, if it's not going to be you, then we're probably going to get someone else. This is where the work ethic comes in. For me, I keep saying whatever thing I'm asked to do, I always want to go above and beyond. And so I was like, you know what, I think I can do this. Got onto a plane, flew to Lagos. Before flying, actually, my boss did mention something very interesting. He's like, so you've accepted to do this? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And tells me, fantastic, your first order of business, you're hosting Jack Dorsey in Lagos. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like the Jack Dorsey's like, yeah, Jack is flying to Lagos. Then when he was trying to do this African tour, and his team was coming here. Yeah, and...
That was the CEO of Twitter at the time,
exactly, right? Exactly, yeah. When we were still Twitter, came to Lagos, had an amazing event, met Jack, understood his journey, his vision, and his passion for the product, which even just, ignited even that fire and way more fueled it. From that day, I was just like, let's keep going. Until the last minute, I think that's something that's very important to me, just to ensure that I'm giving it my all, and no one at any point can be able to doubt the ability or what I was bringing to the table. So it was an interesting journey. I spent time here. I'd never been to Lagos my first time. I'd never been to Nigeria. But the moment I landed, and it became my second home, I think I just blended in. I think my second meeting, someone asked me, which part of Lagos do you stay? You're a Lagosian. I'm like, no, I'm actually from Kenya. It just became like a second home to me. And, for 4 or 5 years, I just back and forth in between Nairobi and Lagos, which was very, very fulfilling.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. For those period of times, where you had to work with Nigerian brands, obviously you also worked with some Kenyan brands at the time. In your opinion, what would you say differentiates the landscape? Are they similar? In what ways? Are there cultural nuances that are different, when you compare?
Yeah.
Maybe consumers in Kenya and Nigeria, or maybe brands as well. Are there similarities? Are there differences?
Wow. So, Africa is just a big pot of very many things happening, very many cultures put together happening. And I think it's something we really need to preserve And in the midst of all this, again, as you move from even just Kenya to Uganda, all the way to the end of West Africa, it's you have very different cultures and different people that you're speaking to. What stands out for me, or what I experienced, was, for example, how deep culture was, mostly here in Nigeria, and as a brand, you don't have an option. You have to really engage yourself within the culture. Whether you're a global brand or a local brand, you have to do it. And that was a very interesting thing, just being able to experience the building of cultural relevance within marketing, which is something, again, I fell in love with. Twitter then, and I think till still now, is a very big cultural platform, for the lack of a better word, or culture thrives there. And so, it was all just symbiotic and went together. Kenya is a little bit more reserved, or I'd even say we're a little bit more open and cosmopolitan, and so the different cultures, yes, but we're very open to also accepting what comes from abroad. That was something I can say is pretty different between the two brands. The two markets. From a digital maturity point of view, also, I think we're pretty much similar.
Oh, okay.
Within the African continent, obviously markets within North Africa and a little bit of South Africa itself as a country are way ahead from a maturity point of view. I think they've evolved beyond where we currently are, in my own opinion, which is a blend in between majority of it majorly being digital marketing and a little bit of performance, versus South Africa, where it's a little bit way ahead. I think they obviously have the market is a little bit bigger. From an ad spend perspective, they obviously have a little bit way more and more so on the digital side. You probably would find the digital share of wallet being a little bit more than within Kenya and Nigeria, which is probably now one of the similarities that we have. We're still not yet there from investing in digital and getting brands more and more putting their ad spend from a marketing point of view towards digital. Probably the best of brands you'd find would be playing within the 30 to 40%. Yeah. Some of them are trying to now get to 50%, which is really interesting. But it does, again, have its challenges, and it's just the nature of the market, which is going to evolve with time, and we're going to get there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's quite interesting to see that, we're all Africans, but cultural nuances sort of has a very huge role it plays, in connecting with people.
Exactly.
In those respective markets.
Yeah.
I think your journey is quite interesting, because obviously from what you said, you actually found your way into marketing and sort of owned in on it.
Yep.
Right now you currently currently lead the team, Welcome Tomorrow, when it comes to growth and performance marketing. In your own opinion, right, from a digital marketing landscape, what role do you think that performance, growth, play in the grand scheme of things for brands?
Wow. I think so. Mature markets, outside Africa, if you look at the US, the UK, other parts of Europe, a lot of advertisers have already evolved into this growth space, which is the next, I'd call it the next or the current phase for them. Moving from digital to performance and now to growth. It has a very big role to play because growth allows you to build. It's more long term. And at Welcome Tomorrow, one of the things that it's quite close to ourselves is how can we catalyze business growth using marketing or just advertising in general. And we don't look at it as one pillar. When people just say advertising or marketing, you're just already thinking about media and that's it. We try and bring three elements together, which for the majority of time they have always been in silos, which is data, creatives, and now we're even moving away from media. It's more strategy because there's a lot of AI coming in and media buying is becoming automated. One of the platforms that has made everyone a media buyer is Google, because of how open and efficient it was. But for you now to be a really good strategist, you really need to understand how to leverage AI, and obviously it's the buzzword now, everyone's talking about it. So I think it's very important in terms of building that sustainable compounding growth, which is again at the center of everything we do. And sustainable and compounding are two very interesting words, because we live in a world where you have we don't have unlimited resources. We need to work with whatever we have. Case in point right now, when economies are not doing well, and the first thing you're being told is if you're going to spend $10,000 on something, you need to justify why. So it's very limited. So all the strategies that we try and put in place for our clients and work with our clients needs to be sustainable to use what we already have. And then compounding, yes, you've put in $1 and the idea is to get 10. But then how can you build it in a way that if I put back this 10, I'm going to get 100. Put in 100, I'm going to get 1,000. So it has to keep compounding, and it has to keep, having sort of a life of its own.
So you can scale.
Exactly, and you end up doing what every business has to do, which is to grow. So it has a very, very important role, and it's at the center of everything that we do. As we do it also, we do understand that it has not, the market is still pretty young, from a digital maturity point of view. And so as a result of that, yes, we're bringing this advanced growth marketing strategies that you'd find in Europe or in the US. And the first thing we do is we want to localize it. So we want to understand the nuance of a local business and what a local business will be going through, the local cultures that are there, and then being able to move that into the overall strategies that we execute for our clients. So yeah, that's the role I think it plays, and it's what's happening now. Probably in the next couple of years, there's going to be something else. And for us as a business, we're always ready and there to evolve with it.
Beautiful. For brands, that are looking to go into the group marketing space, they're currently doing things around brand awareness, driving TOMA, but they're looking towards growth. Would you say there are certain brands that can do growth and some other brands can do? Say for example, let's say sector. Are there sectors, or industry verticals that are better suited for growth or performance marketing, while some are just suited for, brand awareness, TOMA, just driving salience and whatnot? What do you think about that?
So, from my own opinion, from where I sit, I think it's easily, I don't know use the word easy, but it is scalable for, rather than usable for all industries.
Okay. It's usable for all industries.
Usable for all industries. All industries can take advantage of growth. It's just the way that is different.
Okay.
So for someone in the e-commerce space, or even someone who's in FMCG but they have an e-commerce angle to it, financial services where you tend to see a lot of digital tools already being used, the conversation is different because it's more, how can I ensure that I'm understanding my consumer a little bit more? We obviously overuse this quite a lot all the time and talk about personalization. But from a digital point of view, how can you do it? How can you ensure that you're taking advantage of first-party data to do this? You're feeding the relevant data again back to these platforms to get you the right people, and you're able to even go as far as, which is important, a lot of people I think don't do this, which is seeing how you can evolve your product based on the feedback and the needs that you're able to easily get from consumers, exactly, this data that you're taking advantage of. But yeah, also similarly for someone who again is an FMCG and it just wants to have their brand awareness, it doesn't mean that you because here in this case you don't have an e-commerce or a digital journey, for the lack of a better word, that you can do growth. I think content specifically can be seen as a very big pillar in such spaces, and just being able to allow you to evolve from just basic brand awareness to how can I start building two things. One, which is cultural relevance. How can I tie into what's happening culture is very quick, it's very fast, moves at
exponential, it's very dynamic.
Exactly, it's very dynamic, and so you have to keep up. Years ago, Sprite were doing a campaign, or rather the tagline used to be "Quench your thirst." You can't use that now. Obviously, it means something completely different. So it moves and evolves quite quickly. So how can you build that cultural relevance? And as you do that, you then have what people in that industry, or scholars who've studied cultural relevance in marketing speak about tribes. So you almost create your own tribe that then loves you. They would do anything for you. They associate with you. They relate with you the same way you associate with a specific church, because you go there and that's how that church, and those are the ideals of that church, and that's how they relate with. So that, for me, from where I sit, is a pillar of growth, and you can be able to work on that. It's again, from a long-term perspective, it stops being, from where I sit, a lot of the brands, when they're trying to do campaigns, other than when you look at marketing in general, advertising, it's a campaign by campaign thing. And coming from ad sales, where I spent some time, obviously we want to get dollars in every single minute. And so when you at points go to a brand and say, hey, look, what are you working on now? Or rather, what do you want to push now? They tell you, well, we launched this campaign, it's ended, we don't have anything we're pushing. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You still want to keep selling, you still want to be visible, you still want to be seen. And so it has to be, again, for the lack of a better word, long-term and compounding by itself. And I think for me, content has a very big pillar in helping in that, and just combining that with, or rather doing that with the end goal of building that cultural relevance can be a very big pillar for growth for your traditional FMCG or traditional industries where it's just basic awareness that people will be chasing after.
Beautiful. I mean, some platforms are now tilting towards, or the trend now is tilting towards around social commerce. Not just e-commerce anymore. And some platforms are even enabling the buying or purchasing journey being completed on their platform.
Exactly.
Do you think there's a place for that, for brands, just small businesses, that they're looking to scale, looking to reach more people, and turn them into, lifetime consumers?
Yeah.
What role do you think e-commerce, plays, and social commerce plays, for such small businesses that are looking to scale?
Yeah. I think a perfect example has been TikTok. I mean, I'll speak even from a Kenyan point of view. It's just always interesting every single day when you're on TikTok and you see a very small business, someone selling utensils, cutlery, crockery in a small shop in the CBD in Nairobi, going live on TikTok and almost making it, they have this cues and the specific words they keep using to make it funny, and it's as if they're, you'd almost picture them standing in the middle of the CBD trying to attract customers the way it would be happening in a flea market. And I think that is just as a result of TikTok by itself, building this community, this social. I mean, just bring out this social nature out of us as human beings, and as a result of that, I think I haven't asked any of them or studied them. I think they're seeing some good growth. I mean, you can see it in the engagement they get. You go through and they do this when they are live on TikTok. Yeah. And you see some of the comments people are making. Yeah, I want a blue one. How can I get it delivered? And the person there answering, yeah, just call this number. Similarly, doing, I've seen so many brands do that. Small brands, SMEs, MSMEs, even individuals doing it in on a platform like TikTok. And I think that's the power of social commerce, just allowing you to break that barrier of traditionally having to go to a store and opening it up, and having to, before you do this, you have to have rent and goodwill and deposit, and I have to make it look pretty. Then now I have to start thinking about how I can stock it up and then now get people in. Someone can just do that from their house with a phone. That's it. And sometimes I ring light, phone and so yeah, I think it has a very big role to play, and it's interesting being able to see how people just keep devising new ways of getting to desired customers, desired consumers in a very easy and non-friction, for the lack of a better manner. Yeah, I think that's the role it plays, and it's going to accelerate a lot of growth for small businesses. The only problem obviously becomes regulation, which is something for another day. And I think more so living in Africa, I think regulation is always an interesting topic to get into.
It is honestly. I want to double click on something you said about content, right? Because I mean, content is always going to be king, but it also has to do with data. So, what role do you think data play, in that content pillar, to drive growth, for businesses or brands, across various verticals?
Yeah. Thanks for this. I mean, so I think the interesting thing is, and this is what we're huge believers of at Welcome Tomorrow. I'll just bring that back in. For us, if you can do whatever you want to do, you can say whatever you want to say, but if the data doesn't tell me that, then it's quite hard for me to believe you, for the lack of a better word. And we keep saying with data, you can never lose. You either win or you learn. And from a content point of view specifically, I would go back years ago. If you look at creative in general, because that's the word people would be using, the best idea was this creative director at an agency with a cigar on his mouth and he'd say, "I have this big idea." And this big idea is this. And you'd spend millions of dollars to ensure that you put up this content, whether it's a TVC, whether it's a billboard, an image that would be used on a billboard or something of the sort. It was being done in that way. And as you do this, you'd only be speaking at consumers. You're telling them, this is what I have to offer, you don't have an option. And whether it works or not, you really aren't sure. Maybe if you do see the sales, it's gonna work, yeah, but that's what we had then. Although that was what was there, I'm not that old. So that's what was there, right? And you had to speak at people and showcase, this is what I have. I think now with data, it just becomes a very different ball game altogether. You don't have to spend millions of dollars on this big idea without taking the time to validate it. And data is going to allow you to validate it. So what we believe in, we at Welcome Tomorrow have a very robust creative strategy process where we really just don't want to. What we can come up with are just assumptions. We think this might work, this angle might work, this angle might work, and we will have all these angles and we'll create them. Would then take advantage of the different platforms and what they offer. Some are stronger than others. For example, Meta would be very perfect at allowing you to test different things, and taking that plus other platforms that we've invested in also on our side, and specific metrics that we are looking for, we can track them on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and start seeing how different pieces of content are doing. And as this is happening, we can then automatically say, cool, this specific angle works better than this, so we're going to remove what's not working, we're going to double down on what's working. Doubling down doesn't mean we're going to create more versions of it. We're going to start changing specific small elements of that to see what is it that that people are actually liking. And it becomes an endless journey where you keep testing and iterating until you find what works for you. And as you do this, we can you will find a scenario where more and more you're speaking what your customers are expecting you to speak about. And in the short term, yes, it might be a little bit more expensive because of what you're investing in creating the content, but long term it becomes it becomes cheaper. You can now start reducing your costs and starting to get the real value. But the biggest thing out of it is you are communicating to the consumers what they want to hear more and more. So I think that's one angle. The second angle from a content point of view and the value that I see data bringing is again with digital has evolved and there are all manner of platforms that are being brought about. And I think there's a huge opportunity to take advantage and leverage what people are creating in this space. We've done it on our side, again, as I said, with the tools we invested in that just allow us to get more deeper data on how people are interacting. I'll give an example. If you look at the Fintech space, a lot of the people look at, if I was to design a creative and put it up, probably the best metric I would use to analyze its efficiency would be maybe a CPI or a click-through rate, cost per install, or a click-through rate. Maybe if I go a little bit deeper down, I can get a specific cost per action that I want to check. But we have, we want to go even deeper, and we are looking into metrics like IPM, installs per 1,000 impressions, which, might seem to be a very, again, you can almost track a creative all the way from its basic awareness, impressions, to it giving you the desired action that you're looking at. And we keep, again, devising and looking into metrics that can go deeper and deeper and deeper. So I think, that's the role data has to play. And again, you should never lose. You either win or you learn. And you take advantage of that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think for brands that are also open to collaborating, if they're able to share data, it also helps drive insights into the creative process.
Exactly.
The creative strategy, how those creatives are created, how to create bucket of audiences, all of those sort of things for relevance, and I think that is also a very important part of what you're also trying to speak to as well.
And that's what I'm saying. I think the industry for the longest time has been very siloed. I don't think it's across, but I think for the majority of work that's done, you probably have you have different players look at different things, and probably the person who does the creative work, the graphic design, as someone would want to call it, has probably never opened the Meta Ads dashboard or Meta Business Manager or the Google Ads dashboard or whatever platform. And so they really don't know what is happening on that side. And it's because, again, that's how it was built. It's very siloed. Going back to what I was saying earlier, creative director, big idea, take it to market. Really, it has to work. We have to pour the money in it, and it has to work. That's it. But now it's, again, with data, you can take it. You don't have to do it. You do something, put it up on a platform, look at the data, what works, this doesn't work, let me keep iterating until you're able to do it. So that's, and even for us, we don't even look at our, normally, traditionally, be seen as a graphic designer. That's why I use the word creative strategist. And there are creative strategists on our side who really understand not just to do this big idea and push it out, but then what are the consumers saying? How does the brand want to be positioned? What does the competition look like? If I look at this specific industry or the specific individual, what's the level of industry or brand? What's the market? What's the level of market sophistication? Would the market understand, how you sell an iPhone in Lagos versus how you sell an iPhone in a small town somewhere else would be completely different. And so you have to almost factor this in and see, how do I communicate? So that for us is very important. And again, we don't, it's probably one of the industry that's getting a lot of investment globally, from where I sit. And yeah, we just want to keep doubling down on it. And I don't think the work is ever going to stop. We're still going to find different and new ways of doing things. And we just always want to adapt at the right time.
Beautiful, beautiful. Because I think the space is quite fluid. With so many changes happening, with policies, even with tech and emerging technology, AI, big data playing roles, in marketing. And I think that's super, super important to put into consideration, but I want to dial back a bit. What was growing up like for you as a person?
Oh, interesting. Well, I do have a lot of memories, but I would say, again, I was in quite a reserved household. Sorry, growing up. I'm the firstborn, and so when I came into the world, I found my parents in a very interesting situation. They were both quite young and trying to make a living, and those experiences at that point, seeing them build themselves and try and get a better life for me and later my siblings who came along, has, or I think has played a very big part in who I am now, because I've been able to see that whole almost full 360 journey, for the lack of a better word. I had the pleasure really of being in the best of schools that my parents could afford at that point, which was interesting for me, because at times I'd question it and I'm like, cool, how do they do it? But then, now growing up, I can clearly see what's needed and the hard work that needed to be put behind it. Probably that's why I wanted to become an accountant, because what I'd seen my father do, and I thought I also would get into the same space. Similarly, my mom, again, for the longest time, she got into, she was an entrepreneur for the longest time. Tried out different things and different types of businesses all the time, and I could see it, and I'm like, oh, wow. Again, at that point, you probably don't feel it or see it, or you can see it, but you don't feel it or understand what's happening. But again, now as you grow up, you're able to really understand why you need to do what you gotta do, not just for you, but also for again, for the people that for the lack of a better word, accountable to. So it defined me. I went to some of the best schools all through. Again, as I said, based on what they could bring to the table, and it also, those experiences shaped me to wanting more. And I think till now it's the same thing. I never rest. I always want the best of the best. I want to get to just keep going higher and higher and breaking the ceiling. That's sort of hard put it.
Beautiful. What values specifically, or what values or ethics, would you say specifically you picked from your dad and mom, that sort of helped you, to be consistent, to be able to turn in stuff when you say you turn it in, and just be, the man that you are today?
Yeah. I'd go back to work ethic. I think it's a big thing. Again, I'd see how they put in the work. Sometimes I think it tends to be seen as something toxic, for the lack of a better word, which is, I think, in a lot of African households growing up, you just never, as a child, you could not be seen to be idle. If you're idle, there's something you'll be given to do. And I think seeing that, yes, it has, obviously, it's very important as an individual to sometimes take a step back and rest. But I think that, ended up or led to me having the work ethic that I have, and I learned this from them. I could see how they'd put in their hours. My dad would work Monday to Friday. Over the weekend, he'd back at home, he'd go to the village and do other things and other investments. Back on Sunday, Monday he's at work again. It just became it was a cycle, and I knew that's how it was always done. And then I'd say building, again, as I said, I've not been in the industry for so long, or in the working for so long in the corporate space or in the industry. But one pattern or thing I've identified that I enjoy doing is building stuff. And that's also that Dynamo was beginning. Its operations outside South Africa at that point, where I'm welcome to, and now also building what we have. And I think that was just the sense of entrepreneurship, and again, that I learned from them without knowing. Growing up again, I'd say I wanted to sit in an office, corporate style. I work in a bank, wear a suit every single day. But now I think, if you put me in a suit and in a bank, I'd struggle heavily. I enjoy the building, and life has just been very kind to give me that. And I've been part of really interesting ventures, until now, just seeing them evolve into different things. And I hope I can almost create a legacy of, or rather leave behind businesses one day that, grow and surpass lifetimes, which is an exciting thing to think about.
Beautiful. When you think back now, right, and looking at growing up, in Kenya, what would you say was unique, or that was common, amongst people that you grew up with, when you think about it now, what do you think is that Kenyan spirit? How you define that Kenyan spirit, and how has that sort of helped you, in positioning yourself wherever you find yourself across the world, and just delivering value as a person?
I'd say two things, and I think this probably even spans across the whole of Africa, which is being adaptive and just never giving up. I think you heavily see this across Africa. There's so many now senior execs in big companies across the world who just have their roots in Africa, and you can easily attribute that or credit that to the fact that we never give up. Despite everything that's going to be happening, and the situation and what the world and governments throw at you, Africans just keep going, and they want to, whether it's innovating or being entrepreneurs, or trying to solve problems within their own countries and jurisdictions, they just keep going. I think that's a big thing. That I also saw within my peers and people that I grew up with, and I'd even say that till now. And then hard work. You have to put in the work every single day. Again, it sounds very cliche, but I think just having that resilient work ethic of ensuring that I'm getting it done the best way, and wanting the best for yourself and for people around you and the futures to come, is those are the things that I think again I saw within my peers, and I've seen till now, and also for me on a personal level, it's something that keeps me going.
Beautiful, quite insightful. I mean, I think you're very, very correct when you say it's an African thing. There's so much that is going on within the continent, which in some cases can be very limiting as well. From a business standpoint.
Exactly.
Looking at some of the challenges, what would you say? What would you say are some of the challenges, on the continent, that if taken care of, and if eventually you have some solutions to those challenges, it would be great to share. But what are those challenges that you think that if taken care of, could put Africa on a different level, in terms of business, in terms of growing as a continent, in terms of looking at, the GDP on the continent alone, skyrocketing. There have been several conversations around the potentials, that Africa has, and this conversation has been on for a very long time. I dare say even before I was born, But what are those challenges, that you see, and what solutions do you think, could help, mitigate those challenges?
So I think, it's always been, Africa is the next big thing, but it's not next, it's here, and we have to do it. Whether it is from an economic point of view, income inequality would will still always be a problem. Basics like constant electricity supply and housing and access to decent healthcare, all these are problems that are there. But I think what's going to be the next big equalizer beyond education, because I think for me also education is a very big thing, is digital. And I think that just digital, when I say digital, I'm not meaning digital advertising or digital marketing, but digital in general, and just being able to take advantage of the digital space is going to be a very big game changer. But unfortunately, and the reason why I say that also is because of the population. You have a population that's very young. Obviously, everyone knows this. Nigeria, when you look at Nigeria alone, it's probably it is the youngest country on the continent. By 2030, again, you would have a very big population and percentage of the population being young, not just on the continent, but in the whole making up of the world. The youth are going to be a very big, they're going to have a very big role to play. And so I look at digital as a big opportunity, but again, we're not there because there are a couple of things that need to be worked on for that to happen. And I'd look at it as one being cheap internet.
Okay.
Being able to just offer cheap, affordable internet and allowing people to take advantage of this digital thing is going to be a game changer. And second, that can't happen if you don't have the device.
True.
And yes, Africa is mobile first, but it is feature phone heavy.
True.
And so, again, how do you make cheap, affordable devices that will then allow people to, beyond them acquiring them and beyond that, being able to get access to this cheap internet? Again, I think it's going to be a game changer. Just being able to increase the number of smartphones that are on the continent and giving people access to internet, to the internet. And then finally, education. Yes, they have this, they have the internet, they have the phone, but then what skills can I learn? Because the world is becoming more and more, obviously it's becoming a small village, as we know, and the internet is being able to facilitate this. So how do you, again, take advantage of the internet to be able to learn new skills? Yes, the buzzword AI is here, so you can even take advantage of that and see what you can learn. I think these three things are possible solutions to and they're not. It's not the only solution. There are very many things that need to be sorted from a policy point of view and governments and all that. But I think these three things would be quite influential. In my current role and working at Welcome Tomorrow, we're always looking for talent, getting the right talent, through the door to be able to allow us to build this sustainable compounding growth that I'm talking about. It is interesting because, having gone through thousands of individuals and CVs, I just never knew how big the freelancing community is in Africa. And I think that's
a conversation that needs to actually be had.
Exactly, and I think that's just it's one of the things I was looking at is the internet. I think there's a big opportunity there just to double down on it and see. Yes, I might not physically be able to afford to get a plane ticket and go to Germany and work for a German company, but I can do it from the comfort of my home where I can do it quite well. Because again, our talent is unmatched within the continent. Hard workers who would get it done for you. So I think that that's a quick example, for example, of what's available and a huge opportunity for us to take advantage of.
I agree, absolutely, and thank you so much for sharing that, because the population is quite massive, right? Like you said, the freelancing market is some gold mine, which if properly leveraged, can turn things around.
Exactly.
Obviously, they get the right support. Like you rightly said, access to internet is cheap internet is really, really
cheap,
critical.
Affordable internet, yes.
Yeah, it's really, really critical to drive that, because we've seen some of the progress, that people that have access to those internet services are able to do.
Exactly.
We'll see now SMEs, right from the corner of their room, the garage, are able to create fantastic products. We've seen unicorns even emerge, from the continent. I dare say Nigeria and Kenya fall within the bucket of countries in Africa that are trying to drive and push tech. We've seen great products. Pasa, for example.
Yeah.
We've seen how it has revolutionized the payment space. In Kenya. What's that space like? The fintech space. In Kenya, and how is technology, being a driver, for that growth that you're seeing in the country.
Yeah, I think M-Pesa was just revolutionary. And I use the word was because I think there's an opportunity to to get the next big thing, but we've been slow at it. But that was a very big inflection point. It was a big thing, and it really revolutionized that space. Being able to get a very big population that was already underbanked, or rather unbanked, quickly banked just by having a mobile phone was quite exceptional. And that by itself, we've just been able to see the impact it's had on the economy. Safaricom that owns M-Pesa is the most valuable company in East and Central Africa now. And that's really powerful. And you can sort of see the power that digital has to be able to drive that. But we can't stop there. Again, for example, if you look at M-Pesa as a product, it's trying to evolve into other things, and it's needed because you just can't have one angle to it all. You have to be able to find solutions for this ever-changing consumer needs, which is how human beings will always be. Yeah.
Beautiful. You're also saying that I also hear you say there's also potential to do more, and tech can sort of play a critical role, within that space. Are there startups, for example, that you're seeing within the region, the East African region, that have sort of studied, the problems within the space, actual real people problem, and are sort of creating products to solve those problems?
Yes, I think one of the most interesting startups I've seen in most of the East African region has been a company called Nala.
Nala.
Yes, Nala. Nala is they've just seen tremendous growth over the past couple of years. And for them, the concept is they feel as if the payments space within Africa is 1% built, which is something I generally relate to. It's probably way easier to send money or receive money from the US, the UK, and Kenya than it is to receive in Nigeria. From Nigeria. I'm part of a couple of groups, and just recently, one of them is in the marketing space. Someone was asking, have you ever tried paying or sending money to someone in Nigeria? How do you do it? So I think that's probably one of the interesting fintechs or startups I've seen in that space. And within the East African space, and I think they're destined for growth, for success. Obviously, again, it's a highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
But again, the good thing with it is, again, as much as it's highly regulated, it's also evolving in its own sense and nature. So yeah, that's probably one of the most interesting startups that I'm currently watching and looking at. And actually, the whole space within payments, for me, is an interesting one.
Beautiful. Because there's so much that payments, can enable, even from a business standpoint, right? The best way to trade is to have a form of currency. Whatever that currency is a different conversation. But I think that maybe if we're able to morph early enough to a phase where regulations around borders, and we can actually do cross-border trades, do cross-border payments. I feel like that would open so much more potentials. Yeah, there's some risk attached to it,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I think that can also contribute to the growth of the African economy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, and just wearing on my my public policy hat, there's a big conversation right now about the African Continental Free Trade Area. I think it's needed, in my own opinion. But beyond that, being able to look into payment systems and payment infrastructures that allow you to be able to trade with your own currency within Africa, I think should be something that's quite accelerated and looked into. Just being able to make this one big market, because you get access to more than 1 billion people is powerful, and we need to take advantage of it as a continent. Obviously, it all sits with policy now and looking into how how the different jurisdictions decide to go ahead. But yeah, I think it's a big thing, and it's not just going to open up us to the rest of the world, but then also open us up to each other and see how different products that are great and celebrated in specific countries can also start getting celebrated on the African continent.
Massive. That's massive. Thank you so much for sharing that. Before we wrap up, just have about 3 more questions, before we let you go. So when you look at it, right, in terms of your growth as a person, right? Yeah, you said work ethics, you said hard work. Was there a point, maybe from your school days when you're in university or trying to find your feet in the corporate space, were there days where you felt like throwing in the trowel? You felt like giving up, you felt like, man, I can't do this anymore, or you felt like opportunities didn't just come in, and how were you able to manage that? So imagine a 22-year-old or 25-year-old, African, listening to us now, and he or she's struggling with those sort of challenges, trying to find their feet, trying to, look for opportunities. How are you able to manage that phase of your life, and what advice would you have for such persons?
Yeah, there have been so many, and I don't want to focus a lot on the past. One that stands out for me, and one of my former bosses relates to it, is when I was coming to Lagos, and I was being asked to run the business essentially on this side. Then I'd never been to Nigeria before. I really did not know what the culture was. I didn't know the local nuances. I didn't know what people like, what people don't like. I was just asked, this is what we're doing. This is what the business wants to. What we're doing. This is what the business This is what the business wants to go. Go and do it. It was hard because I was everything at that point. I was an individual by myself, away from my family, away from my friends, in a foreign country, trying to build something new. And it had its tough moments where I even remember a couple of times asking myself, is it really worth the money? Is it worth the time? Spending my time here? Why don't I just go back home and get something there and it's going to be comfortable? But that by itself was a defining factor, because I think the joy and the success of such moments is seen when you start when you start being successful. You start to see the success come in, and when you start seeing those milestones coming in. For me, they just kept on fueling me. Whether it was being me by myself and with the support of the team that I was working with then, that was outside Nigeria, in our first quarter delivering almost 50% quarter-on-quarter growth, to hiring my first colleague in Nigeria, to seeing the business grow and become big beyond what we even imagined at that point, and having more than 40, almost 50 people working in Nigeria. Then for me, those milestones are what just kept me going. And yeah, I could see that yes, it was hard at the beginning. I was alone, but then look at what it is now. And so, for me, I love learning from day-to-day experiences. Whether it was, every single morning, waking up to go to a client meeting or going to the office and seeing millions of hardworking Nigerians, waking up to go to work. For me, I blended in. I was like, I have to do it. The same way these guys are doing it, I have to do it. So yeah, I learned from that, and those experiences just made me enjoy what we were building at that point, and it was really exciting. And again, as I said, it doesn't stop. Even now, it's exciting to see the business that we're building. Again, we've seen just tremendous rapid growth, and those milestones are interesting. A couple of months ago, I was the only individual outside South Africa again, seated in Nairobi. Now, there's a big team, not just in Nairobi, but also in South Africa. We have clients across, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya. It's exciting, and for me, and probably that's why I enjoy the building. Those milestones just exciting to experience and to see.
Beautiful, yeah. Beautiful. So, because you've had to set up businesses, across various countries, on the continent, what would you say is the recipe for success, for a business that is starting out in a new terrain? What would you say are required in the recipe to ensure that business thrives and is scalable?
I'd actually just say one thing, which is adaptability. I think, and kudos to anyone who's built a business. I don't think it's an easy thing to do, and most across various regions and various markets. But one thing that I quickly learned was you can't come with your own way of doing things and say, this is how it has to be done and this is it. You have to really take the time to understand how the market operates. What are the nuances of that market? How different is the market? How different do you treat talent? How different do you treat customers? What do people love? I think doing business in Kenya versus doing business in Nigeria versus doing business in the US, the UK, South Africa is completely different. There are things that give you an edge in other markets. In specific places. In other places, no one really cares. For example, I think if you look at majorly Nigeria, a little bit of Kenya, I'd say a lot of how we do business is very relationship based. It's based on, who do I know? I always have a guy for whatever you want, and so if they come to me and ask me, hey, look, I'm looking for X, I know a guy. And if you put me in touch with that guy, chances are that guy is definitely going to say, you know what, Tim is my guy. And that's because Tim is my guy, I'm also your guy, and I'm going to make it work. I don't think that works abroad. It's, and mostly in markets like the US, even the UK, I think even South Africa in some places it doesn't work. You can just walk in and, look for the person you're looking for and get what you want and leave. But our markets are very highly relation-based. And that's why I'd say adaptability. You really need to come into the market and understand how it operates, then move yourself into it, and you will see the benefits. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I think adaptability is very, very key. Even for the individual coming into a new terrain,
Exactly.
You need to learn. You need to learn the culture. I think you're very, very correct in the sense that the market is really relationship driven. I think very, very, very apt. Thanks for sharing that as well. Before we let you go, I wanted to just check in with you very quickly. The young boy or young girl, somewhere in Nairobi now or Kenya, that is not so clear on what the future holds. Not so clear on where the next meal is coming from. But that person is driven. The person really wants to be successful. What advice would you give to that person?
I'd say the worst thing that someone can tell you is no. You just have to ask. I think we as human beings, we tend to be scared. We're scared of rejection, or scared to ask. I don't know how I'd put it. But yeah, that's something I'd tell you. You just need to keep going. One of the things that I really loved at then when we were building a Dynamo, and it was a huge value the business believed in, and I think stuck with me till now, is just the essence of failing faster. And most if you're young, I think you have that opportunity of if you need to give it a go and see. If you're looking, if it's not gonna work, at least it's quite quickly. You still
learn from it.
Adapt. You can learn from it and do something else. So the concept of failing faster for me is really interesting, and it stuck with me all through. And so it is way better to take those chances early enough when you're young. And I don't think you ever become too old. But take those chances, and you never see what the world. You never know what the world is going to give back to you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Brian. I think that's a very fantastic place to leave it.
Yeah,
it's been really, really nice learning from you. It's been really impactful and insightful. One of the gems you shared with us. I'm sure our viewers would also find them very, very impactful. But yeah, thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate your time on this episode of Stories and Journeys.
Amazing, thank you very much. And yeah, the world is your oyster. Go ahead.